This video is based on Lingshan Hermit's work in the game against the Demon King. What cards do you have in your hand? All rights reserved. Any infringement will be pursued. When you truly begin to cultivate, the prelude to your war with the Demon King also begins. Whether you are willing or not, as soon as you start to develop a bit of aspiration for the Deo and begin to accumulate some merits, the Demon King has actually already set his sights on you. It should be said that this is not a fair game. As one side in this war, from the very beginning, you are in a state of complete ignorance about your opponent. The Demon King is very mysterious. He has never appeared before you. You don't know what he looks like. You don't know when he will appear. You don't know in what form he will appear. You don't know what he will do to influence you once he appears. You've only heard that there is someone called the Demon King Papian who takes delight in destroying others' cultivation, and that sooner or later, one day, he will come and destroy your cultivation. Your understanding of him is limited to this. You imagine that he lives in the distant palace of the celestial gods, and it is not until the distant future when you are about to achieve enlightenment that he will appear, commanding demon armies to shoot tens of thousands of arrows at you, just like in the movies. Although this sounds childish, this is the understanding that many people have of the Demon King. Contrary to your understanding of him, as your opponent, the Demon King knows you very well. He knows that you like the films of Yasujiro Ozu, that you love meatballs and dark chocolate, what kind of girl you like, and even the most subtle thoughts that flash through your mind. He understands you better than your wife does, because he has been studying and pondering you. He knows your weaknesses. He knows which spots to press that will make you suffer immeasurably. He knows what temptations can seduce you. For most cultivators, this is an unambiguous contest in which you are at a disadvantage from the very beginning. It's like you're sparring with someone you can't see. He can see you, but you can't see him. He can strike precisely at your vital points, while you can only blindly swing at the empty air. Because you can't see him, you don't know what he looks like, what clothes he wears. You don't know in what form he will make his entrance. The Demon King has the ability to appear at any time, any place, in any way you can't imagine. He can also use anything to attack you. He may appear in the form of a cup of tea or a rosary bead. He may appear in the guise of upholding your self-esteem. He may appear in the garb of Buddhist teachings or a teacher's words. For those cultivators who lack experience, everything around them can be used by the Demon King as a weapon to attack them. The Dharma teachings can be used. TikTok videos can be used. Even something as simple as how long you should boil noodles for the best texture can become a weapon for him to attack you with. When you are in this disadvantageous position, all you can do is tread carefully, endure the beatings while fending them off, observe and become familiar with his tricks and methods. We have already begun to cultivate, and once cultivation has begun, there is no way to stop it. We have no choice but to go forward, and the Demon King will not stop his attacks on us either. On the contrary, he will continue to increase the pressure until you are completely defeated. So when you find yourself in this situation, all you can rely on are the good habits, good qualities, and good views that you were born with. These are the cards in your hand, the weapons you can rely on to fight against the Demon King. In fact, these are your only weapons. After beginning cultivation, for a very long period of time, we can only rely on these innate good qualities to counter the Demon King, using them to buy time, to parry with the Demon King, to become familiar with and understand his methods and tricks, thereby accumulating experience for the ultimate, thorough defeat of the Demon King. Over the years, I have witnessed the values of many people and observed the reactions of many people when facing the Demon King. Those cultivators who are able to pass the demon's tests tend to hold relatively traditional cultural views. Those whose minds are filled with modern thinking, on the other hand, are unable to pass the Demon King's tests. From my observations, I have also reached the conclusion that qualities we need to rely on, such as innate kindness, empathy, the ability to believe, and the ability for self-reflection, are mostly unable to be cultivated later in life. You either have them when you are born or you don't. Fundamentally, it is very difficult for you to develop these later on. It's like how a good person cannot turn bad, and a bad person cannot turn good. Many things are brought over from past lives, and this is almost predetermined from birth. If a person does not possess these qualities, you basically cannot cultivate them anew. It's like not being able to make an adult grow 2 more heads and 4 more legs. Among all of these good qualities, the ability to believe should rank first. You may think this ability is easy to possess, but in fact most people lack it. Most of the people I have met do not have this ability. They find it very difficult to believe others. Or perhaps we could say they have never truly, completely believed anyone. I think I can probably understand their mindset. In the first few decades of their lives, no one has ever truly been good to them. No one loved them. No one truly cared about them. They have never seen a holy person. Never seen a true cultivator. Not even a good person. In the end, everyone becomes contemptible due to self-interest. They have experienced betrayal, divorce, blood and fire, and are extremely disillusioned with human nature, so they don't believe anything. In order to prevent being hurt again, they presuppose everyone to be selfish and terrible as a form of defense. It's a defensive presupposition that allows them to avoid being disappointed by others. So they don't believe that there are good people or holy people in the world. They think that's just a pretense before showing their true face. They habitually vulgarize everyone's motives. In their view, everyone is selfish. Everyone is struggling for their own interests. All the beautiful and sacred things in human society are false, with dirty and sordid interests hidden behind them. There are no truly sacred and great people. Behind the sacred and great facade, everyone is selfish and self-interested, with their own calculations and agendas. I can understand why they would think this way, but if you harbor such thoughts and go to cultivate and establish a teacher-student relationship with someone, I am very worried for you. I don't know how you will be able to establish faith in your teacher. In fact, if you are the kind of person described above, you will simply be unable to establish faith. You can only pretend to have faith. Pretend to believe the teacher. You are accustomed to not believing anyone, accustomed to speculating about others' motives. So you will imagine the person who wants you to be liberated as someone who wants to take money from your pocket. From the perspective of cultivation, this kind of thinking will undoubtedly cut off all possibilities of liberation for you. All of our cultivation begins with following the teachings. And for you, following the teachings means listening to the teacher's words and doing exactly as he teaches. And the reason you would listen to someone who is not related to you by blood is entirely because you are certain that this person truly has your best interests at heart. You believe he is an enlightened being. You believe he has conquered selfishness and ignorance through cultivation and tamed the 2 habitual tendencies. You are in awe of his wisdom. You believe he can help you end the cycle of rebirth and suffering. With these premises, you are able to listen obediently and truly begin to cultivate. But if you think the person teaching you the Dharma and giving you empowerments is just trying to make money off you, if you view him like a gym instructor or a real estate agent, how could you possibly listen to him? No matter what he says, you will feel that he is trying to deceive you out of money. This refers to your deep-seated thoughts, not the surface thoughts that may appear in your mind. However, for various reasons, you need to maintain the relationship with him. So you will pretend to listen obediently, and after weighing the options, you will choose the way that least harms you to carry out his instructions. To all appearances, you seem to be cultivating and following the teachings, but because you lack the critical element of belief, your cultivation has never truly been wholeheartedly engaged. You don't believe the teacher. You don't believe his teachings. Everything you do is just to complete the task and get it over with. There are many such people now, who deep down feel that everyone is selfish, that everyone is just in it for the money, that the only relationship between people is one of self-interest. Although this is their true thought, they will very carefully hide this view and present an outward appearance of having great faith and being very obedient. but this is just a pretense. I'm not saying they are deliberately deceiving everyone by putting on this act. In many cases, they themselves are probably not even aware that they are pretending, not even aware that they fundamentally lack faith. And the reason they pretend is partly because they feel there is some benefit to staying here, and partly because they have not yet experienced a major shock. If something happens that exceeds their ability to endure, they will probably run away faster than anyone else. Because at root, they simply do not believe that anyone would truly act for their own good. I have always felt very compassionate toward such people. In their entire lives, they have never believed anyone. They are on guard against everyone. They do not believe their own teacher is a Buddha or a great cultivator. They do not believe he has conquered the habitual tendencies of selfishness and self-interest. They do not believe that there are people in this world who do things completely out of faith and for others. From a deeper perspective, this also signifies that they do not believe in the entire path of cultivation, do not believe in the effects of cultivation, do not believe that human beings can become Buddhas and saints through cultivation. As a cultivator, if you do not believe your teacher, do not believe yourself, do not believe in the path to liberation, then your so-called cultivation from start to finish is nothing but self-deception and a performance. It is merely a grand performance of the Dharma orchestrated by the demon king and the self, a feast of self-deception and deception of others. So if you are such a person, accustomed to speculating about others' motives and imagining others to be hypocrites, it means you have probably never truly believed your teacher. You follow him in cultivation, yet you have never truly believed him. This is absurd. Then everything you do is just self-deception and deceiving others. Your so-called cultivation has never truly begun. The Demon King loves people like you the most. Without him having to lift a finger, you have already cut off your own possibility of cultivation. So the ability to believe is extremely important. You believe in things that ordinary people cannot believe. You believe that people can go from ordinary beings to holy beings. You believe that such people still exist in the world. You believe you can find such people to be your teachers. You believe the truths spoken in fairy tales. You believe that Miller and Bodhidharma once bowed to each other while standing on blades of grass. If you believe these things, then you will not be empty-handed. You will have the ability to wrestle with the Demon King on the path of cultivation. You will be able to grit your teeth and persevere. You will be able to fall into pits and then climb out and continue forward. Every day we encounter the Demon King. Every day you are struck by the poisoned arrows he shoots that give rise to greed, hatred, delusion, arrogance and doubt. It's just that most people lack the awareness to realize it. When you truly begin to accumulate some merits, the Demon King grows restless and starts lurking around you, stalking you. When you are cooking noodles, it is lurking. When you are reading, it is lurking. When you are feeding your cat, it is still lurking. It is lurking, waiting for an opportunity, waiting for an event that will make your mind waver, waiting for a crack to appear in your relationship with your teacher. And that opportunity finally presents itself. That morning, a woman came to visit your Dharma teacher, and no one had informed you beforehand. So you were a bit surprised when you opened the door. Your teacher was quite warm and friendly with her, and it seemed they were old acquaintances of many years. He discussed matters with her that you had never heard him mention before. Your teacher was clearly happier than usual today and talked more than normal. The way they reminisced made you feel like an outsider. You had always thought you were a very close disciple of your teacher, always thought your relationship with your teacher was very close, always thought you knew a lot. But now, compared to this woman, you suddenly realized you were nothing. Although you were still sitting there serving tea and maintaining a smile, it was clear that your smile was no longer as natural. The Demon King began whispering in your ear, and your mind began to be poisoned. Your pride, your vanity, your self-esteem, your competitiveness, they were all being stirred up, bubbling to the surface. Although you were sitting there, your mind was very unsettled, with many thoughts arising outwardly. You felt as if you had been deceived, and the way you looked at your teacher began to take on a somewhat resentful tinge. Because your self had been invaded, your self-protection mechanism began to activate and run. You began to withdraw, to retreat back into your shell, no longer completely open. A slight barrier arose between your heart and your teachers. Although the change in you was not visible on the surface, you yourself knew. Such things happen every day, every hour, every moment. Many people have experienced similar situations, but most people do not react quickly enough to realize that they have just been attacked by the Demon King. They do not know that they have just experienced a war and been utterly defeated in it. Most ordinary cultivators find it very difficult to be aware of these secret things happening to themselves every day. Only those who truly have some cultivation, some power of meditative concentration, some ability to analyze and observe themselves, are able to realize what has actually happened to them. If you are utterly unaware of these things happening to you every day, completely unable to see how your emotions are being swayed and led astray by the Demon King, then your cultivation cannot even be spoken of. Only on the premise that you are aware of what is happening can you talk about cultivating the mind and cultivating at all. Only on the premise of knowing what is happening can you analyze and examine yourself. Can you understand how fragile you are? Can you understand how powerful and inviolable yourself is? Can you understand how clever the Demon King is? Can you know where your weaknesses lie and what matters most to you? A good cultivator should at the very least be able to realize that their mind has been influenced by the Demon King. Know that they have been led astray. In that way, at least they can think back afterwards about what just happened, how they were led astray, how the inner demons and outer demons joined forces, and then they can analyze the Demon King's tricks and methods. Analyze how they themselves fell for it. This way, the next time you encounter the Demon King, you have a chance of recognizing and repelling him. I have seen many so-called cultivators who do not understand cultivation, who are completely immersed in their so-called cultivation every day, completely unaware of the secret wars happening in their own minds and bodies, unaware that they have been visited by the Demon King, unaware that they have been influenced, unaware that they have been utterly defeated. Because they are unaware of these things happening to them, they cannot even talk about resisting and striking back. Every day, the Demon King visits them, but they are completely oblivious. It is in this silent way that they are slaughtered and devoured by the Demon King, with their cultivation gradually dissolved and transformed away bit by bit. Jealousy is an utterly irrational emotion, just one of the many emotions we have. When we are seized by jealousy, we lose our rationality. We feel that we have been harmed. We become indignant about it. We want to take revenge. Many crimes are born from jealousy. In fact, all of our emotions are like jealousy. When emotions arise, we fall into irrationality, and the Demon King is very skilled at provoking our emotions, and then taking advantage of the lapses when we have lost our rationality to launch major attacks on us, in order to destroy the fruits of our cultivation. Usually, the best weapon we have to ward off emotions is the power of meditative concentration. But having some ability to observe and analyze oneself can also prevent emotions from further developing. This ability is rare these days, because it only appears in those who know and admit that they make mistakes. I remember one time, I asked a student who had made a mistake to analyze his motives and the source of his values. And then I discovered that he seemed to have no idea how to analyze himself at all. This incident piqued my interest. Gradually, I realized that most people do not know how to analyze themselves, because they have never been asked to do so before. Those who do not analyze themselves usually do not think they make mistakes, because they live in a culture where admitting mistakes is considered shameful. When they do make mistakes, they habitually place the blame on others. They themselves are completely faultless. If a person never makes mistakes, then of course they do not need to analyze themselves, and so the habit of self-analysis can never be established. Because they lack the habit of analyzing and observing themselves, they have absolutely no understanding of themselves. They do not know their own abilities or their own limitations, and they especially do not know what they lack. For such people to go and cultivate, their cultivation will only remain on the surface, unable to touch their true habitual tendencies. Because they do not analyze their own behavior, nor do they analyze the values behind their behavior. They do not analyze how suffering arises, nor do they analyze the deep cultural reasons behind their own thoughts and actions. They believe these things are irrelevant to cultivation. What they consider cultivation to be is finding a great enlightened being, receiving teachings from him, and then just cultivating every day. No need to observe oneself. No need to analyze oneself. This is what they consider cultivation to be. Earlier we talked about the ability to believe, and we also talked about self-analysis. These are actually all complementary. If you grew up in a culture that advocates being aware of shame and correcting mistakes, you would naturally have the habit and ability of self-analysis. Then when you begin to cultivate, it would be easy for you to develop the habit of observing your body, speech, and mind. This good habit complements the Dharma, allowing you to see the selfishness and scheming behind your outward generosity, allowing you to see all the unseemliness and unacceptability deep within your heart, allowing you to see your true state beneath the polished exterior. It would make you break out in a cold sweat, make you realize your inadequacies, make you realize your foolishness. Only then could you truly lower your head. Only then could you truly admit your mistakes, and only then would you have the possibility of changing yourself. Those with a good self-perception either have intellectual deficiencies or are completely incapable of analyzing themselves. In the past, I have seen some cultivators who were constantly engaging in so-called actual cultivation, but they were completely unaware of observing and analyzing themselves, and self-analysis was not part of their cultivation. So they did not know how their afflictions arose. They did not know the root of suffering, and they were even more unaware that the self was working together with the demon king every day to steal away their cultivation. For such cultivators, I have absolutely no praise. I also have considerable doubts as to whether the things they were doing constituted cultivation. They were completely oblivious to the things happening to them every day. They felt that as long as they cultivated a sufficient quantity, enlightenment would naturally arise, but the reality is likely not so. I have seen many people who have done closed-door retreat for many years, people who have recited hundreds of millions of mantra phrases, and although these people have cultivated for many years, they never feel they have any problems. Their sense of ego remains intense, because they never analyze themselves. For cultivation, this is very bad news. It is equivalent to being illiterate in terms of cultivation. Never analyzing and observing oneself means you have absolutely no knowledge of your true state, which causes you to live in the illusion that you are cultivating quite well. You have no understanding of how the self operates. You are completely ignorant of the demon king's tricks. You are utterly unaware of the things happening to you every day. When your mind is struck by the demon king's arrows, you are completely oblivious. When you fall into the demon king's pit, you are still utterly unaware. Even when you get to this point, you will feel that what I am saying applies to others and has nothing to do with you. This is the result of being unable to analyze and observe your own body and mind. If you cannot analyze yourself, your cultivation will only remain on the surface. You may do a great deal of closed-door retreat, but you will still be unable to shake your underlying, true views. You may have recited 100 million great compassionate mantra phrases, but in your heart you are still just an ordinary person who loves the secular life. In addition to the abilities to believe and self-analyze that we mentioned earlier, there is another extremely important quality: honesty. This is a tremendously important quality. Those dishonest people are accustomed to deceiving everyone, including of course themselves. They live for a long time in self-deception. Self-deception is as indispensable to them as water and air. They need the favorable self-image created by self-deception to feed the self and sustain life. If a person falls into self-deception, then after a long time, the content of their self-deception will become real to them. In other words, they have completely submitted to their own conception of themselves. They completely believe they are exactly as they conceive themselves to be. This is very similar to the Vajrayana practice of envisioning oneself as the Yidam deity, except that their conception of themselves is completely at odds with their true state in relative terms. They will think they are incredibly wonderful and will not accept any criticism. At this point, even if you are Shakyamuni Buddha, do not point out their problems, for such people cannot accept any truth. To tell them where they have problems is tantamount to telling them they are not actually that intelligent or that good. Not only will they not be grateful to you, they will feel you are insulting them. Those accustomed to self-deception are unable to engage in self-analysis, so there is no way for them to know their own problems. Even if you force them to analyze themselves, they will just go through the motions and pretend. Because they lack the element of honesty, their self-analysis is purely just going through the motions. Such people live in their own world, reveling in their own delusions. They are utterly entranced by the self-image they have created for themselves, and even if you pour molten lava on their face, you will not wake them up, because they simply do not want to awaken. If you try to wake them up, you are just creating enemies for yourself. I have seen many masters of the self-deception realm and witnessed their prodigious abilities of self-deception. They really can explain away all mistakes in the most beautiful way. They will not admit any fault whatsoever. Even if they killed a dog, they could make themselves believe that the dog was actually not harmed and was quite comfortable. When a person lacks honesty, they are unable to clearly see themselves, and they will inevitably fall into self-deception. Self-deception will make them even more unable to see themselves clearly, and the inability to see themselves clearly will exacerbate the illusion they project onto themselves. These two factors will form a vicious cycle, causing them to fall into an inescapable vortex. You cannot see your true state, you cannot see any of your inadequacies, and you also cannot accept others pointing out your problems, because that contradicts your long-held conception of yourself. You cannot see any of your problems, and you also refuse to accept any problems pointed out by others. This is tantamount to cutting off all possibilities for improvement. You have not even the slightest possibility of change. All of this is because you are unable to analyze yourself, and your inability to analyze yourself stems from your dishonesty. In terms of cultivation, not being able to analyze yourself means you will never be able to identify the views that cause you to make mistakes, and you will be even more unable to touch upon your deepest underlying values. So you will also be unable to make any real changes. This means you will continue to perpetuate your previous mistaken views and continue making mistakes. Your cultivation will remain stagnant. You will remain forever stuck in your pre-cultivation state. The only difference being that you have recited a few tens of millions more mantra phrases than before. But I very much doubt that this will make you any better. Before coming to this world, God prepared a few gifts for every foolish person, to ensure that they would accomplish nothing in this life. God would give them the mentality of self-complacency, the tendency to be opinionated and take things for granted. He would give them the ability to doubt everything but not the ability to believe. He would make them feel exceptionally intelligent, so they would not need to listen to others. He would make them never admit mistakes and never lower their heads. When all these qualities come together, you will basically be forever unable to turn things around. Because when you face the Demon King, you do not have a single card in your hand. When you need to believe, you are instead doubting. When you need to be honest, you are evading and making excuses. When you need to analyze yourself, you merely go through the motions with a few perfunctory self-criticisms. When you are such a person, your so-called cultivation is basically just a waste of time. Everything you do in the name of cultivation is merely a performance, an act of diligent cultivation put on for yourself, your teacher, and your fellow cultivators. Its sole purpose is to satisfy the self in this way. We are all very selfish, and we are also very timid. We want to be liberated, yet we also fear being deceived. We want to open up, yet we also fear being hurt. This causes us to remain stuck. As selfish and timid people, we have already set out on the path of cultivation. The Demon King lurks around us, fully armed and raring to go. He wants to turn us into his likeness. He wants us to remain forever mired in samsara. He will not relent until he achieves his goal. Therefore, we have no other choice. We can only muster our courage and use the weapons in our hands to fight against him. Although we are selfish and timid, although we lack wisdom, fortunately we have the ability to believe, we have honesty, and we are also willing to analyze ourselves. This makes it easier for us than those without these qualities to establish a true teacher-student relationship. Usually, we can only be honest when we truly believe in the enlightenment and selflessness of the teacher. Only when we truly know and truly believe that the teacher is instructing us for our own liberation will we follow the teachings. Only when you possess the qualities of honesty and faith will you be willing and able to admit your mistakes. You believe that the wise one before you will never harm you. You believe he wants you to be liberated. So you are willing to open up and cooperate. All the truly intelligent people I have met share one trait. They can discern what is truly good for themselves. Even if this process is very difficult, in the end they are still able to figure it out. So they admit their mistakes. They know they make mistakes. They know the teacher points out their mistakes in the hope that they improve. They know doing this is painful, but they also know not doing it will be more painful and endless. They know that all mistakes and suffering are rooted in their own mistaken, deep-seated values. They know dissecting themselves is to find the deepest problems, so as to thoroughly eliminate mistaken views and behavior, and achieve enlightenment and liberation. For this, they are willing to endure this temporary suffering in order to attain lasting peace and happiness.